Have you ever just stopped and wondered, what really makes us tick? What are those invisible forces that seem to dictate our choices, our desires, our actions every single day? Well, we're going to dive right into that. Because it turns out, just beneath the surface of our conscious decisions, there's this powerful hidden program running the show. To really get this, let's start with a little puzzle from our source material. So imagine this. A child is caught stealing a small toy from a store, and her mother is just baffled. Why? Because the kid has the exact same toy sitting at home. I mean, it makes zero logical sense, right? Why on earth would she take something she doesn't actually need? Well, here's the thing. The action was never really about the toy. Not at all. It's just a symptom. The source we're looking at explains that this kind of behavior, it's almost always driven by some deeper, unmet emotional need, like a real hunger for affection that the child is trying to satisfy, but in a totally misguided way. It's such a powerful reminder that our actions are often just the tiny, visible tip of a massive iceberg. So let's go explore what's really lurking beneath the surface. All right, let's explore that iceberg. What are these hidden drivers anyway? We're going to start by uncovering these invisible forces that are secretly guiding so much of what we do every day. The source material puts it in a way that just clicks. It says an unmet need isn't just some passive feeling, it's an active void. And I love this metaphor. Think of it like a black hole, constantly pulling on your energy, your attention, shaping your behavior until you finally address what's at its core. Okay, so we know these needs exist and they're powerful, but how do they actually work? Let's pop the hood for a second and look at the internal engine that turns a simple feeling of lack into this powerful motivation to act. The core concept here is something called psychological homeostasis. Now that sounds super complex, but I promise it's actually pretty simple. Just think of it like a thermostat for your mind. When your inner state, your sense of well-being or love or security, when that drops below a certain point, your internal system just automatically kicks in to bring things back into balance. And this whole rebalancing act, it happens in a really predictable 4-step cycle. See, it all starts with a need, basically a feeling of deprivation or lack. That lack creates a drive, which is just an inner tension that really pushes you to do something. This leads to a motive, the actual action you take to resolve that tension. And finally, you reach the incentive. That's the goal that satisfies the original need and brings you right back to balance. And this is where it all just comes together. Let's look at this cycle in action with 2 totally different examples. First, a physical need, like hunger. A lack of food creates the tension of feeling hungry, right? That tension motivates the action of, say, cooking dinner, all to get to the goal, the food itself. Simple enough. But here's the cool part. It works the exact same way for an emotional need. A lack of affection creates that feeling of loneliness, that tension, which motivates us to call a friend, all for that ultimate goal of feeling connected. See? It's the same engine, just running on a different kind of fuel. So, if we're all driven by these different needs, is there some kind of map to help us understand them? Oh, absolutely. The psychologist Abraham Maslow created his famous framework, the hierarchy of needs, which gives us this really powerful way to visualize our inner priorities. Okay, so at the very bottom, the absolute foundation of this pyramid are our physiological needs. These are the non-negotiables: air, water, food, sleep. I mean, if you can't breathe, literally nothing else matters. This is the baseline for pure survival. Once our basic survival is covered, the next level immediately kicks in: safety. This is our deep, deep need for stability and a predictable world. Just knowing you have a roof over your head, maybe a steady income, and that you're safe from harm. It's our shelter from the storm. Now with survival and safety met, we start looking outward. And this is where our incredibly deep social needs for love and belonging come in. It's that fundamental human drive to be part of a tribe, to connect, to share our lives with other people. Moving up from just belonging, we get to esteem. Now, this isn't just about being in the group, it's about feeling valued by the group and by ourselves. This is our need for achievement, for respect, and for recognition. Now we're getting to the higher levels, the needs that really define what it is to be human. We've got our cognitive needs. That's our curiosity, our drive to learn, and just understand the world. And right there with it, our aesthetic needs. Our appreciation for beauty, for harmony, for order. And then, finally, we reach the very peak of the pyramid: self-actualization. This is it. This is the drive to become everything you are capable of becoming, to fulfill your unique potential and live a life of real purpose and meaning. So reaching the top of that pyramid sounds amazing, right? But what does that actually look like in a real person? How do you know if you're getting there? Well, the source material gives us a pretty clear picture. A psychologically mature person tends to see reality for what it is. They're often more spontaneous, creative, and empathetic. And two things here really stand out to me. They have a gentle sense of humor, and maybe most importantly, they are focused on solving problems, not just on how they feel about them. And this slide right here highlights one of the most powerful shifts of all. That move from being self-focused to being problem-focused. See, the self-focused mind is always asking, how does this affect me? It's subjective, and it can get you really stuck on your own feelings. But a problem-focused mind asks, how can we solve this? It's objective, it's outward-looking, and it's totally geared toward a goal. So we've mapped all our needs, from basic survival all the way up to becoming our best selves. But where does this whole journey ultimately lead? I mean, where do we find that complete and total fulfillment? And this is where our source material takes a really fascinating turn, kind of moving from the purely psychological to the philosophical. It proposes that even if we chase and fulfill all these needs, a little gap will always remain. It argues that no person, no achievement, nothing in this world can ever satisfy us 100%. So, to address that final gap, the source that we're exploring finds its answer in a spiritual dimension. It concludes with this quote from the Apostle Paul, suggesting that, from this particular perspective, the ultimate fulfillment of all our needs isn't actually found within the pyramid itself, but in a relationship with God. And that brings us right back to where we started. So, as you go about your day today, maybe take a moment to look under the hood of your own actions. Just ask yourself, what hidden need is driving you right now?